right, can you guys see my screen? Can people hear me?
Yes.
To both seeing the screen and hearing me.
Yep.
All right. I'll figure out how to record and we can get this started. Sorry for the delay. All right. How many people do we have here? Looks like a halfway decent number. All right. So as you guys might have seen in the Slack channel, Splunk had to delay by a week. So we're going to go through some CAN bus and car hacking type things. Something I threw together here. It's kind of my research project for 5:30. Oh, and I was an idiot and it. A better title there. Highest level of professionalism. All right. So, what is car hacking? Yes. So, I figured I'd go through because I think car hacking isn't necessarily something that people originally think of when they think of computer security. They think of, what you might call a traditional computer, the laptop, your phone, maybe a router. Maybe if you're gonna go to old-fashioned like war games and whatnot, nuclear missile control and stuff like that. Lots of fun, but you also have a huge number of computer-type stuff in your car, which means that can be hacked and controlled. So I just sort of went on to Wired.com, went into the car hacking section, figured I'd pull out a couple quotes from a couple of their articles, just kind of give you an idea of what can be done with car hacking. Everything from basically cloning a key fob to allow you to start the engine. You can disable the airbags, anti-locking, so on, which I'm sure everyone can imagine why that would be a problem. There's a really cool video of some hackers paralyzing a car on the highway after they told the reporter not to drive on major highways. And then this one right here, which I actually have a video for, causing unintended acceleration, slamming on the car's brake, or the big one is turning the car's wheel when it's operating at any speed. So if we go over to this video and see how terribly this looks for you guys. Hopefully you guys will get an idea. So that's also the QR code that I have on the slide. So they're driving along. Get a nice countdown. Car wheel jerks. They're going about 25 miles an hour on a back road. I'm sure you guys can imagine how bad it would be if you're in rush hour traffic traveling at 80 miles an hour. So again, here's the Wired.com hacking, car hacking section. Here's that YouTube video. Let you guys take a screenshot or picture of your phone or something if you are at all interested. So, how is that possible? What are the underlying mechanics of all this? Well, cars are full of computers, not necessarily the things you'd originally think of unless you've gone through several computer engineering courses. Most of them are the microcontrollers. According to random people on the internet, there's an average of 50 plus microcontrollers in a vehicle. Well, that number definitely varies by model, and it can be lower, especially on older vehicles, and much higher if on luxury and newer vehicles. The idea is kind of there. You can have a microcontroller for basically any minor function in a car. This can be unlocking the doors, locking them, brakes, engine management, cooling, tire pressure, sensors, stuff like that. Now, most of these don't have any operating type systems, and most of them can only really function with one part. But we do have some more powerful computers, such as the Infotainment Center. Micro has a nice GPS in the middle, can connect to Bluetooth. This is something you'd more likely consider as a full-on computer. In fact, some of this is even running Android underneath the hood. And just about everything, if not everything, is controlled by a computer in some way, shape, or form. Which brings us to networking. So you have all these computers in your vehicle, and they need to be able to talk to each other. This is done over a different type of protocol than most people here will probably be familiar with, which is called the CAN bus. Basically, it works by having two wires, which should both be at roughly the same voltage. If you want to send a bit, a 0, then you raise the voltage in one and lower the voltage in another one. This is about like 2.5 volts. This dual voltage thing where one goes up and one goes down allows you to cancel out noise, because one wire may fluctuate a little bit, but if it doesn't have a corresponding match in the other wire, the microcontrollers can know to throw that away, which is the error resistance and that is needed for vehicles, because you don't really want random signals interfering with system critical communication. Another thing is that cars can have multiple CAN buses. This can be, I don't have a huge amount of experience with this, but you can imagine something that unlocks the doors and rolls up the windows, and another thing that manages engine lights and engine speeds. Here's a little bit of a better look at how the packets work. If you haven't taken any of the higher level, any of Julie's classes or anything like that, really briefly, everything sent over any sort of communication protocol nowadays uses packets. This is just a chunk of data that can be sent rather than a constant stream. We have, for the CAN protocol here, we have an arbitration ID. Then we have something that specifies the length of the data here, some extra fields to end the frame and whatnot. And something that I personally thought was really interesting is, so the arbitration ID lets someone talk over someone else. Well, not talk over someone else, but reserve the wire for themselves. That way you can have the engine talk with the wheels or talk with the steering system without being interfered with by the windows rolling up and down, because you can obviously see that you'd rather have your engine functioning properly than needing to open a window. And what they do is they have when the voltage is high/low, so the voltage is active, that signals a 0 bit. And the lower the bit, or the lower the arbitration ID, that means the higher the priority, which allows you to have two things start talking at the same time. Both of them raise the wire to 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and then one of them can drop to 1. However, if the other thing is still speaking, that voltage still remains high and low. And then the thing that was speaking knows to shut up and let something that's more important talk. Another thing is, this is not an open protocol, or what's happening inside your car is not open, which means that there is no good documentation, so you have to reverse engineer this. So, how to start with the reverse engineering? You have to find the buses in your vehicle. If you know what an OBD pinout cable is, this is kind of an overview. You can find them in like the driver's seat area. I believe mine is like up and under the wheel. I just realized you can't see my hand, so that's not going to help. If you get up there, you look around in your car, you can definitely see this type of layout. There's a bunch of other information that I'm not 100%, bunch of other pins that I'm not 100% what they do, but you can see a CAN high and a CAN low. You can connect right into that. Or if you feel like really going for it, or you suspect that whatever is being put out of the CAN bus or the OBD pinout cable that you have access to isn't the CAN bus that you want to analyze, you can also go in and try to find it in your vehicle. A couple points to look at when you see it is that you should have two cables which may have a little bit of noise on them, but they should bounce between what was it? I believe it was 3 volts, maybe it's 5 volts, and then it'll increase by 2.5 volts and it'll decrease by 2.5 volts. And if you take those two voltages and you find the difference, it should always be 0. Because when one raises, the other one will lower. So once you've found your CAN bus that you want to analyze, you can hook up your computer to it. You can do this with some stuff like basically off of Amazon, which lets you, like, it's mostly proprietary, so that's less fun. You can also just straight up using GPIO ports, which are easily accessible on like a Raspberry Pi to connect up to it. Some tools would be the CAN Utils suite. Again, and another advantage of working with Linux is you can be able to download that. And you can also use Wireshark. The one thing for anyone who's used to working with Wireshark, especially in like 230, 231 classes, is a lot of the time they'll decode it for you. So you open up an HTTP packet in Wireshark and you'll see all these nice headers and you'll find the data that's transmitted. That's not going to be the case when you're analyzing the CAN bus, because Wireshark does not know what any of those bytes mean. So it's just going to output raw bytes, which is where your job as a reverse engineer begins. The example that I have was you're going to find one thing that's relatively simple, to unlock or lock a door, and just repeat that action continually. Using the above tools, you should be able to see what happens. So basically start recording all of the data, unlock the door, stop recording all of the data, and then you can play it back to confirm that you've captured that information. You can do this repeatedly until you can either find the one byte that changes when that happens consistently, or you can start narrowing it down. Think of binary search, where you're cut off half of your packet, or half of your replay. If you can replay it again and the door unlocks, it's in your half. If not, cut that half off, go to the other one, continue down until you get basically a single packet that you can send that can unlock or lock a door. And then you can continue even just fiddling around with bits in that single packet to figure out exactly what unlocks that door. And from there, you could also find more information, such as if one bit unlocks the front right door, there's a good chance that the bits around it might unlock the front left door, or the back door, or the trunk, etc. This is a decent amount of trial and error. But by the end of it, you should have a pretty good understanding about what your car says to itself between all of the different functions. However, let's say you don't want to open up your car because you need your car to work and you don't have a bunch of spare cars laying around. There's this really cool tool. I have not been able to do much in it, which is the ICSIM. Here is the URL. Here's the QR code if you don't feel like typing out that URL by hand. This has a bunch of different advantages. You get to do this in the comfort of your own home. One of the things with working with cars is you have to have a car next to you, and that car may have to be being turned on and off. which means smoke and carbon monoxide and all that stuff. So if you're in the middle of winter, you may not want to be sitting outside turning your car on and off again. You don't have much risk. There's generally not a huge amount of risk when adding packets to and from the CAN bus. However, there's never no risk. However, for a virtual program, I would be surprised if you somehow crash the whole program, but you can always just reinstall it. And then you can also increase or decrease the challenge level on this, which could be really good for beginners who want to start off super easy, then get up to harder and much more realistic items before they go out with their vehicle. This gets us into the firmware. Each of those microcontrollers will have their own firmware binary blob. And this is definitely a harder task, in my opinion. However, can be just as interesting. It lets you do a lot of fun stuff with, you can change the firmware once you understand it, which lets you change fuel efficiencies, or you can just get a better understanding of your vehicle if you like to know, what it does. This process is you're going to have to figure out some way to pull the firmware off of each microcontroller. This can vary and might require learning some other exploits from like firmware or hardware hacking type things, which we do have other videos. And then you can take this and plug it into GHydra or IDA Pro. GHydra obviously being the free one put out by the NSA. And IDA does have a free version, but IDA Pro is most likely going to have the actual stuff that you need to look at. This can be a pretty big task. The newer versions of vehicles can have 1 to 2 megabytes worth of firmware. This can be very hard to kind of decipher. Older things, if you can get your hands on them, might be a lot easier with only 32 kilobytes. There's a lot of good information in the Car Hacker's Handbook, which is at the end of this, which I'll point out, which is kind of what this entire presentation is based around. And some of the other suggestions it had was looking over patents, which can help you figure out what they're trying to do, because car companies will like to protect their stuff that way. And then you can also look at the physical wiring to the pins for each of the microcontrollers. This is a lot of stuff that's covered in 288. If you haven't taken that, that can kind of give you a bit better feeling for this. Something that everyone here might be a little bit more comfortable with is the Infotainment Center. This is probably one of the more powerful, if not the most powerful computers in the vehicle. This has a huge number of different attack surfaces. Everything from newer cars that have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. You can have USB updates, USB cables that plug in, plug your phone in. All of this are different attack surfaces. And because you actually have a computer that's probably running some sort of operating system, whether it's going to be like an Android Linux type thing, or you could even have like a Windows IoT version, that opens up all of the traditional attacks. Which is a really good, interesting way to get a foothold into your vehicle or into a remote vehicle, because this could be connected to stuff like GPS or cellular, which allows for more remote execution. And the infotainment may be hooked up into the CAN bus, which allows for all of the lower level stuff, such as slamming on the brakes, shutting the engine off, turning the wheel, that before may have required you to be in the vehicle. Now you can be remote. Let's see. A couple of the final notes is there's some talk about having like vehicle-to-vehicle communication. I'm not aware of this happening a huge amount right now, but especially with self-driving vehicles, this will probably become more common. And especially with self-driving, think Tesla. That's just one big supercomputer that has control over everything. Nowadays, the steering wheel is still connected to like the drivetrain, so with enough force, you're still going to be able to hold the car straight on the road. However, as soon as they get rid of the steering wheel, that option kind of disappears as well. We also haven't really touched a huge amount on the key fobs, which are a whole nother microcontroller. You can start dealing with radio frequencies, replay attacks, and stuff like that. Another point is a lot of this is proprietary, which does make it harder to get into, but also means there's probably a lot more security holes because you haven't had such a massive community looking over every possible flaw in the system. So if you do get into it, you're much more likely to find, opportunities. The final thing is cars don't really get updated after launch. That would involve sending out USB sticks, or they have to be connected to the internet. And as I'm sure everyone here realizes, computers need to be updated if they want to stay secure. So if you have some car from 2008, that thing probably has software that's running a version from the very least, 2008. This is also true for the key fobs. One of the particular attacks that I found was interesting was key fobs using old encryption standards, which makes a certain amount of sense because they're a very small microcontroller powered by a battery that has to last a very long time. A lot of power consumption requirements there. But this allows you to easily break those. Here's a couple of the resources. Again, this talk was primarily pulled from the Car Hacker's Handbook, which you can find for free by Open Garages right there. If you want to get a hardcover, actual physical copy of the book, you have the second URL. The DEF CON Car Hacking Village was also very interesting to watch their talks. They also have a a Discord server operating right now. So I'm sure there'd be many more people much more qualified than me to help anyone out who's interested in trying this stuff out. Do we have any questions? Comments? Silence?
I know it doesn't pertain to this particular meeting, but I've got a problem here. So I want to take CPRE 230 and the only way it will fit into my schedule is if I take it next spring so that I can minor in cybersecurity with the 2 years I have left here. So if the club might have any ideas on what to do about that, since I'm an MIS student and don't have any ties with the engineering college at this current moment.
So I don't think they're going to offer it in the spring. I don't know if they...
Well, the engineering advisor I talked to yesterday said they might.
I know they're looking at bringing it to be every single semester. I also know that they've never done it they've only ever done it in the fall before. So if you're looking at getting the cybersecurity minor, I believe that requires 230, 231, and possibly 331. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it requires 230, 231, and then 331, with all three of those being dominoes.
Yeah.
And prereq, and then you also have to take some kind of operating system course, and then you also have to take an elective. Now I'll have MIS 435 and 445, so one of those is for my elective credit, and then we're going to take computer comp sci 252.
Yeah. I know there was a good number of people who don't take those classes in order. So they'll do 231 and then 230. However, they at least keep on saying that they're going to really start enforcing the prereq chains. So
because like the engineering advisor said that they could possibly give me a waiver, like to take 231 ahead of 230.
My guess
if need be.
My guess is that's probably going to be your best bet. Will, did you take them out of order? If he's here. I don't know. I know that they have had some people take them out of order. I think. Here, let me check something real quick. Yeah. So the professor is Julie Rush, and she is a member of the IASG Slack channel.
Okay.
You may be able to shoot her a message and see if she can help you. What she would definitely be able to tell you if they're going to be doing it next semester.
Okay, because I tried to email Professor Jacobson, and I haven't gotten a response back from him.
Yeah.
So
Doug doesn't respond to emails really fast at all.
okay.
But Julie is on Slack semi-consistently. So if you sent her a message in the IASG channel, there's a decent chance you get a message back within a couple days.
Just send a DM.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll try that then and see. Maybe if that works out, because I've only got 2 years since I transferred in from DMAX, so it's just like trying to figure out how to fit it all in.
Yeah.
And see what I got left, and figure the club might have an idea.
Yeah. I know that they've been trying to get them. Julie is going to be the one who's going to be able to tell you. She was going to be probably one of the major deciders of whether or not you're going to be able to take them out of order. And she's definitely going to know whether or not they're going to do them next spring.
Okay.
I know she's been quite busy, so I wouldn't expect a response, within the minute, but probably within a couple days.
Okay, I'll try that then and see if that works out.
Anyone else have questions, comments, concerns? Complaints? Well, I'm probably going to head out then.